What's up, YouTube? It's time for a review of the new Memoriam record For the Fallen, out this past Friday, March 24th. This is the debut record from this death metal supergroup, featuring most notably drummer Andy Whale and vocalist Carl Willits, who were both essential parts of Bolt Thrower's classic early 90s output. They've got the backing of Nuclear Blast Records. They were featured on the cover of Terrorizer magazine last month. The positive reception has already been drifting in. This album could mark the resurgence of old school death metal. Can't go wrong, right? Well, unfortunately, I'm not into this. Like, at all. Pretty much right from the get-go, I have issues with it. If we break down the 2-minute and 50-second intro track, Memoriam, this is a song that starts off really promising with this sinister harmonized guitar line and a dark, doomy chord progression underneath it that I really like, but it quickly, very quickly devolves into one of the most sickeningly boring, I don't know whether to call it a riff or a breakdown because it feels kind of insulting to either term, but whatever it is, it lasts for 45 seconds and then comes back again later in the song for another 25 seconds. And whatever we want to label it, a riff, a breakdown, a fucking snooze fest, it is one of the most dull, probably the most dull musical passage I have heard on a metal record in 2017. Gung, 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 gung. Like just putting me to sleep right from the get-go. And then a few tracks in, we have my least favorite cut on the album, Corrupted System. This one suffers not only from lifeless riffing, but from redundancy on that lifeless riffing. This song runs for over 6 minutes, and it's built on basically 3 less than impressive parts. You've got the slightly hardcore tinged verse riff, which occupies the most real estate on this song, and it's basically just these run-of-the-mill, openly strummed power chords. Then later on, you've got a tremolo picking variation on it. And then at 1 minute 45 seconds, you're introduced to the, breakdown that gives that section in Memoriam a true run for its money in, a bore off. I'm all for some good, mean, stripped down chunk in death metal. I love early 6 Feet Under. I love slam death metal, but this is just like taking a Lunesta. And again, this song was just doomed to fail because it takes these 3 already less than exciting parts and just stretches them over 6 minutes. Maybe this song could have worked as like a 90-second hardcore song that just gets in 3 parts, gets out, but not when it drags like this. Holy fuck. Then you got a song like Reduced to Zero, which does have this lumbering, swampy groove that I fucking dig. But again, the momentum gets just knocked flat around the 2.5 minute mark with another substandard, overly simplistic part. And the shame is that I do enjoy pockets of what's going on here. Like right before the 5-minute mark when Andy Whale's kick drum just slides beneath that main riff, and I enjoy the menacing tremolo picking section that follows. But this is another song that's bogged down by a severe lack of fat trimming. And there's nothing about Carl Willits' vocals that's pulling me in here either. His aging growl is passable, and the lyrics here are something about a prophecy saying that the end is near, but there's nothing in this song that makes me feel the appropriate dread or concern, if that really is the theme here. Most of these songs aren't bad from beginning to end, though. It just comes down to structural and arrangement issues. Like with the song Flatline, I love that main riff that first comes in around 53 seconds. It's demonic and it's dissonant. But the problem is, when you play it 100,000 times, it loses what flavor it does have. This is another track that's just stretched too thin, where there just aren't enough moving pieces to justify its length, which becomes especially apparent when you hit the 6-minute mark and you encounter another 1.5 minutes of those boring chugathons that are just like an unnecessary epilogue to a song that should have ended like 2 minutes ago. And what proves my point is the song Surrounded by Death, which is great. This song benefits tremendously from being concise because, like the other songs on this album, it's basically built around 3 or 4 parts, but they're squished appropriately into 3 minutes. And they happen to be catchy too, which doesn't hurt. But for me, the monotony of this album doesn't fully break until the closing track, Last Words, which is awesome. It's got a tangible theme here of this warrior of some kind going off into battle, but beforehand, he's speaking to his lover with words like, "Have courage, my love. Look to the stars above. Tell the children I am there. I bid you farewell. These are my last words," which is very dramatic. And I guess it's followed by a melodic guitar lead. but the tone is just so droopy that it kind of ruins it. But before that, it was cool. But that higher register pivot riff, which first pops in at like 2 minutes and 18 seconds if you want to follow along, I love that riff. That riff gets the riff gold medal on this album, which is not exactly a big achievement, but still, it's very catchy. But even with this song, like in the latter half of this song, the battle happens, but nothing changes musically to signify it. It's just more boring power chords. Like, wouldn't this have been a nice spot for maybe a little acoustic interlude? Is that too much to ask? Just something different? So Last Words is decent, but by then it's the closing track on the album. So it's not enough to pique my interest in this thing as a whole. It's just the one track that I'm going to actively come away from this record wanting to hear again. And since it's inevitable, we might as well discuss the bolt thrower comparisons, which I think there's going to be a lot of satisfied fans who get at me like, hey, if you're into classic bolt thrower, this isn't really that far off from that. How come you don't like this? And they're not entirely wrong. Like, if you take a record like The Fourth Crusade, which is my personal favorite, this is in that same realm. It's straight ahead death metal, but a little bit slowed down with a notable doom metal influence. But I'll tell you why this pales in comparison. With Bolt Thrower on The Fourth Crusade, the riffs were way snappier, the production was way more intense and in your face, the pacing was way more volatile and unpredictable, Carl Wilt's vocals were way more guttural and intimidating, and at least there was some lead guitar playing to break up the monotony. On this album, like, the song Surrounded by Death has a 9-second lead on it. There's a few Slayer-style, evil-sounding guitar harmonies, but in general, there's hardly any high end to balance out the low end, which just makes for a tiring listen. I had no idea death metal could be this drab in 2017. I mean, you could, if you really tried, you could compile all the great pieces of this album into like maybe 3 or 4 great tracks, but that's clearly not what happened, so it doesn't matter. I don't completely hate this record, I'm more just indifferent. But it's like an irritated indifference. Like, this is all? I was psyched for this. This makes me not want to listen to death metal for a while. It's just very uninspiring. This record is very narrow in scope, and it's very forgettable. For the Fallen gets a 3 out of 10 from me. As always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or shoot me a message so we can continue to talk music, and I'll see you guys soon.